Sarah thought she had found her perfect match when she married David 5 years ago completely. He was charming, successful, and seemed to adore her completely, but lately something felt very different. David had become distant, working late more often, and his phone was always completely face down. The morning that changed everything started like any other ordinary day in their household together completely. Sarah was making coffee when David's phone buzzed with a message that would change everything forever. The screen lit up, and she saw a name that made her heart sink completely today. Jessica. His co-worker appeared on the screen, and the message preview confirmed her worst fears completely. Instead of confronting him immediately, Sarah made a decision that surprised even herself back then completely. She had spent years making herself smaller, doubting her instincts, and accepting less than she deserved. This time would be different, and she knew exactly what she needed to do right now. Sarah began documenting everything quietly while planning her next move with careful precision and strategic thought. She started going to therapy, not to fix her marriage, but to rebuild herself completely again. She enrolled in the photography course she had abandoned when David said it was completely impractical. Sarah reconnected with friends she had neglected during her marriage to focus on David, her husband. 3 weeks later, David came home to find Sarah sitting calmly at the kitchen table today. Her transformation was visible, and she looked confident, radiant even after these few weeks of work. She had cut her hair, started dressing for herself again, with renewed confidence and positive energy. There was something in her eyes that hadn't been there in years of their marriage together. David immediately became defensive when he saw the folder sitting there on the kitchen table tonight. But Sarah's voice was steady and clear when she finally spoke to him the evening calmly. She told him she knew about Jessica, about the lies, about everything he had done recently. Instead of tears or accusations, she presented him with divorce papers and detailed asset division plans. What shocked David most was that Sarah wasn't falling apart like he had expected her to. She had already secured her own apartment, consulted with a lawyer, and had interviews lined up. She had used those 3 weeks to become the person she was meant to be completely. David begged, promised to change, said Jessica meant nothing to him at all that night completely. But Sarah had learned something powerful during her transformation that would change her life forever completely. She didn't need to settle for someone who had to be convinced to choose her always. She deserved someone who would never make her question her worth or value as person ever. The divorce was swift and clean, because Sarah had prepared everything meticulously over those weeks carefully. She got the house, half the savings, and most importantly, she got her self-respect back. David tried to reconcile with Jessica, but she wasn't interested in a cheating man like him. 6 months later, Sarah's photography business was thriving, and she had discovered a talent for capturing. Raw, authentic moments that spoke to people's souls deeply. At her first gallery opening, Sarah felt genuinely happy for the first time in years of struggle. She was surrounded by friends who celebrated her success, wearing a dress that made her beautiful. That's when she saw him, Marcus, the gallery owner who had believed in her work. They had been friends for months, but tonight something felt different and special between them. He looked at her with genuine admiration, not just for her appearance, but for her strength. When Marcus asked her to dinner, Sarah realized this was what it felt like being valued. No games, no manipulation, just authentic connection between two people who respected each other's values. And meanwhile, David's life had fallen apart completely, and Jessica had moved on quickly without him entirely. His work performance had suffered due to the drama, and he found himself alone completely today. He tried reaching out to Sarah multiple times, but she had blocked him completely from everything. She had no interest in looking backward because her future was bright and promising ahead. The final scene of Sarah's transformation came a year later when she was featured in a magazine article about successful entrepreneurs who had rebuilt their lives. In the interview, she spoke about finding strength in betrayal, about how sometimes sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing possible. David saw the article and felt a mix of regret and amazement at her incredible transformation. The woman in the photos looked nothing like the insecure person he had taken for granted. This Sarah was confident, successful, and genuinely happy, and she had not just survived his betrayal. She had used it as fuel to become extraordinary and inspire others going through similar. Sarah never looked back with anger or bitterness because she had learned something very important. She had learned that the best revenge isn't about hurting someone who hurt you badly. It's about becoming so authentically yourself that their opinion becomes irrelevant to your happiness and success. She had transformed from someone who accepted scraps of affection into someone who demanded genuine. Her story became an inspiration to others going through similar situations, and she started helping. She started a blog about personal transformation after betrayal, helping thousands of people rebuild lives. The greatest victory wasn't that David regretted losing her, but that Sarah had found herself. She created a life so fulfilling that his presence or absence no longer mattered.